Not the ideal spot to guide, especially if you are having a large group. But since the building that you can see here is very important to our story, I'll explain a bit about it, and then we'll continue to the Orient Hotel Square, where we're going to continue the story. As you can see, we are now in the Emek Refaem Street, the Valley of Refaem. A name that we find in the Bible. Who remembers where? In what story?
David.
After David conquers Jerusalem, established his capital, the Philistines understand that he is no longer their friend, and now they are actually climbing up to Jerusalem, and they actually use the same way that the train is doing. Okay, so it's not by chance that the French company chose that path. That's one of the historical ways to get to the southern coastal plain of the land of Israel, with the hill country, the area of Jerusalem, the Jerusalem hills. So actually the Refaem Valley ends here. So we are here in a kind of a tributary of the main deep valley, which goes from here southwards and then curves in the area of Ramat Rachel. Why Ramat Rachel is such a strategic point? Because it's actually controlling the hill of Ramat Rachel. The archaeological site is controlling this important junction of roads between the road of the patriarchs, road number 60, and one of the ways to get from that road all the way down to the area of Bet Shemesh, of the Shfela, and the coastal plain. Okay, so this is part of this major road. That's the reason why it's named Emek Refaem. We're standing in front of a historical building. I heard you talking about, and you identified the script and also the sign in Hebrew and English and Armenian, of course, that today this is an Armenian building. It belongs to the Armenian community. But that is not the original case with this building, because you are looking at, if you would look at a building like this, what would be the automatic idea that this building was
German
church? A church, you would say a church, right?
You mean basilica?
So it looks like a basilica. It looks like a church. You could even note, I don't know if you saw it.
It is a church.
That there is a no, it's not a church. There is an apse, but it's not a church. It's called the house of the community. Yeah, it's a kind of the temple of the community.
Ecclesia.
One of the things that can show you that it's not actually a classical church is that the apse is not facing
The east.
eastwards, it's facing northwards. And the main entrance is from here, from the west. Okay, it's true that it looks like a church. It has even a small bell tower, and of course the cross. But the Templars didn't name it a church. Okay, but this is the kind of their community center, the house of the community. You know, in some way it's their temple. Okay, so we're going to elaborate a bit more, and I would like to ask you and what you remember, if you learned about the Templars already, to see what do we know about this community. But this was one of their most important institutions. It's not the first building that was built by the community, members of the community. We're going to see, actually we can see it already from it there. You can see the house with the triangle roof with the gamblon over there.
Yes.
Okay, that's the house of Mateus Frank, who was actually the first Templar that built here, that bought here property. And by the way, do you know where he lived in Jerusalem before he came here and bought this terrain and built his house? He was living in Mishkenot Sha'ananim. So Mishkenot Sha'ananim was also open, not for non-Jewish. Sorry? The first house of the community, built by Mateus Frank. We're going to see it from now from one side of the street, but then on the way back we're going to pass near it. But a few years later, the community is building their community center. We're talking about the late 70s of the 19th century. Okay, so we can say that the German colony in Jerusalem was established in 1873. Okay, so Mateus Frank is building the house in 1873, and the rest of the buildings are built during the 70s and the 80s of that century. I would say a few words about this house, but then we'll continue in a more nicer location. This was the center of the community. It's true that it also had a religious function, okay, religious and cultural, but this was also, it served as the administrative center. When we talk about a Templar colony, there are two functionaries, okay? There is the guy who is the elder of the community, so he is more the head of all the religious and the cultural activity, okay? And there is also the head of the community who actually functions as a kind of a mayor of the community, okay? But we have the two functions done by two members of the community, and therefore there are also two institutions. There is the institution of the elders, it's like a council, and there is the more administrative council, which operates under the head of the community himself. So when we talk about religious ceremonies, when we talk about cultural activities, they all take place here. And of course, all the gatherings of the community also, they are in the kind of community center. So remember, it's not a classical church. It has very similar functions, but it was very important to the Templars themselves, and we're going to talk about their ideas, 1 second, that they're not having their church. Okay, it's not a church. Okay, it's like the, somewhere you can call it a temple. Yes?